Welcome back to another episode of Northern Fishing. Today we have a little bit of a different video lined up. I am going to do a walk-around tour and review of the Lifetime Daylite 8-foot kayak. So this video will include a review of my thoughts and feelings and the performance of this craft, and also it will include some of the modifications I have done and some of the features that it has that I have found and used to get the maximum performance of this craft on the water. So first, we're going to start at the front and go to the back of the craft, and then I'm going to talk through a review of how this craft has performed. So first, we're going to start at the front. So right away we get to this nice carrying handle in the front. Now there's one of these in the front and the back, and they're very useful. But one of the flaws that I found with them is that they are just threaded in with a rubber seal up here. But when I unthreaded them, I found that there was barely any threads in the material, and it was kind of a weak connection. So I was kind of afraid these would eventually pull out. So just to strengthen them up, I unthreaded them and put epoxy on the threads and in the hole, and then retightened it and let the epoxy harden, so that I know this will last me for years to come. Moving on, this is just the standard design. These are little footrests depending on how tall you are. I'm actually not sure what this hole right here is for. I haven't really found a use for it yet, but I'll have to see. Again, we have another hole I'm not sure what its use is, but I actually use it sometimes as just a temporary rod holder. My rod design is a little loose, so it kind of jiggles around, so I don't use it all the time, but sometimes when I just have to quick set down my rod and make a little adjustment with the paddle or anything, that's nice and convenient. Then we come up to here, where there's a nice cup holder right here, and then on each side there are scupper holes, just standard scupper holes to your water. And this design is very nice because if any water ever comes over the edge, it falls into this little tray here. And it's perfectly designed that the water runs right to the scupper holes. I mean, I know that's what it's supposed to do, but that feature works really well. So I'm happy about that. Next, we have a center carrying handle, which is very nice to grab and then to carry the kayak. And it's very well designed because this is right at the center balance of the weight. It's not even at the center of the kayak, but given the weight distribution throughout the kayak, it's right in the center. So it's really easy to balance and carry because this is such a light kayak too. These are just seat adjustments, standard. This came with the kayak. Then we have the seat, and then there's two more scupper holes right here. So first of all, these scupper holes are placed in a convenient location so that a lot of splash doesn't actually come into the lowest part of the seat here. So that is nice, but at the same time, there are times that water gets in here and it obviously doesn't drain out because this is a lower point. Although, sometimes the water, if there's enough water, it'll drain into the center carrying handle where it doesn't drain out, but it's out of the way. So again, that's a very good design. Not completely ideal, but I think it's a good balance between getting more water in and keeping water out. Alright, so now we will move on to the seat. I would say it's decently comfortable. It's not the best, but I've been in this thing for over 4 hours and it's been completely fine. So the seat is alright. There are upgraded seats available like on Amazon and such, but I have found it's not really useful. I mean, I'm young, so I can really take it. Alright, now we get into more of the interesting part. So right here, I just have a cheap little fish finder mounted, and that's actually mounted via a car windshield mount. It's made for smartphones and like GPS devices, but it's very nice. So this is suction cupped onto the side, so it's not very permanent, and if I ever want to take it off I can, and it's just less holes in my kayak. And then I'll just skip back here a little bit. So this wire runs and it goes into my mount crate, which I'll talk about in a second. And then it runs back here to my transducer mount. So I was worried about putting, so this transducer came with a mount, but I was worried about putting that mount so close to the water line. So I took a piece of plastic and I riveted that in way up here. And then it's a solid piece of plastic that goes down to the actual mount, and I riveted that mount in, but there's no holes below these two mounts. That wasn't quite close enough to the water line, so I had to do some extension. So this is just plastic and bolts, and then I epoxied a lot of this just for extra sealing and strength, and then I did a red paint just so it matches a little bit better, and that seems to work really well. Alright, so jumping back, I'm just going to talk about this bay. So when you first buy this kayak, it comes with this back compartment with a netting over it. I'll throw up a picture. But I actually took that netting off and threw in my mount crate here. So this mount crate happens to fit perfectly in here. There's just enough room for it, and it actually kind of fits in kind of snug. I have it secured with some carabiners, some elastic line, and then some keychain rings. So I have one of those on each side, and then in the back I have these reusable, they're not like zip ties, but they're like them. They're little snap ties. So I have one of those in each of the back just for extra holding power. In here I have, right here I have, these are just like some plastic tubes I had around my house. I zip tied them to the corner of my mount crate for rod holders. Now, you probably don't have these, but I've seen plenty of people use PVC pipe, and that works fine. This is just what I had. So this one is my main rod holder, right here, as you can see. And I usually only take one rod with me. I have two rod holders just in case, but right now this other one is holding this net. This is a net I would highly recommend. I just picked it up at Walmart. It was $5. It's great. It's a nice short handle. Get it out. Nice short handle, but it's a bigger net, so I can take in some bigger fish just in case I get really big ones. So that's nice to have. So I use that rod holder for the net and this for my actual rod, and I can just reach around and grab it whenever I need it. Alrighty, now I'm going to actually skip over to the other side. So right here, this is one of my first permanent additions. So this is actually like a tool holder, a broom holder. It has these little spinny things, and so I use this to hold my paddle. So it just snaps right in there. So when I'm paddling around, I can quick just throw it in there, and it doesn't come out. It's out of the way. There are this little edge here. There's one on that side. A little indentation to place your paddle. Plus, oh, I guess I skipped over these, but there's also two up there, which can be used, but they don't hold the paddle very well. And I find this is much more secure. And I feel better, so I put that here. I originally had it mounted here, but it actually got in the way of my paddling. So if you are going to mount anything like this on your kayak, make sure you do it like back by the seat or further back or really far forward. But this is a great place for me. Alright, next, I'm going to talk about the anchor. So this is a 3-pound anchor, folding anchor that I picked up at Walmart. It works fantastic. I love it. It works great, and I have that paired up with 60 feet of anchor line that I also found at Walmart. It's like 60-pound test or whatever it would be. That's weight rated for it. It actually floats, which is fantastic. So if I have extra anchor line, it floats and I can pull it in. It's just nice in case I would ever lose my anchor too. This whole thing floats if it ever falls out. And then what's cool is, like I said, there was that netting that went through here. So in these little mounts where the netting was mounted, there's a little hook right here that I used for the ring, as you can see here. But then there's also a hole through these black things. So what I did is I ran my anchor line through this and this right here, which has worked really well. And then again, I unscrewed this black piece, pulled that out and put epoxy on here just because, again, the only thing holding it in was a screw, and I didn't ever want that to pull out. And so I just slapped extra epoxy on the screw and on this mount just so it's nice and solid mount. It'll never pop off because all of the stress of the anchor is on this. To control my anchor line, I just took a piece of plastic and drilled 2 holes in it, and then this is sliding, but this has enough tension that it'll come and hit this, and the anchor won't pull out anymore, and so it's a quick adjustable. If I have to pull some in or let some out, that works really well. I'll just move back. Here's the other carrying handle that I used. I also epoxied that one so it's stronger. This is where I run my transducer cable, and then here is the back plug to let water in and out if any water gets in through any of those other holes in the kayak. Next, I'm just going to run through some of the stuff that I keep in my milk crate. So first of all, I have a Type 2 PFD. Always have that to stay legal and safe, more importantly, safety. Next, I have a tackle tray. This is where I keep... So this tackle tray is where I keep my most commonly used baits. I do a lot of spinnerbait fishing, but I also have some frogs, some spoons, inline spinners. Yeah. Bottom is where I keep the baits I use the most, actually. Spinner baits and buzz baits down there. But again, oh yeah, and then I have this little, I don't know what you call that, self-retracting string thing, and I keep this, pliers, or whatever these are called, take hooks out, and also just to work as pliers for clamping things or pulling line tight. And then I have fingernail clippers for cutting line, and that's on the self-retracting. So it's nice, I can keep this whole thing in the milk crate, but I can just pull this out and use it when I need it, and then it goes back where it was. Next, I have a dry box. This is actually, it's not advertised as a dry box, it's just a high quality Tupperware that I picked up from Walmart. They're about $5 a piece. This is a must-have, keep keys, phone, and wallet in there. And what's really important about this is it keeps those things dry, but also if it ever falls in the water, it does float, so that's very nice. Next, I just have a cheap scale. So actually I found this scale on Amazon, and I'll link it below. This is only $3. It works really well. It says up to 88 pounds. I think the thing would break, but it's not like it has a weight limit. I found it to be fairly accurate. It just has some AAAs. And then it only came with the hook, but I didn't really want a hook in the gills, you know, because that's not quite as safe, and I wanted a clamp. But when I looked up like fish grips or clamps, they're like 10 bucks. So I went to my local Runnings and I found this. It's just like a regular clamp for woodworking and things. This was like $1.50 and it works great. I've had up to 4 pound is the biggest I've ever tested this on, but it hasn't slid at all. It's plenty strong. It's plastic, and these nice little plastic things make sure I don't damage the fish's mouth anymore. So this is like a $5.50, really nice scale setup. Next, I just have some sunscreen, because obviously I'm a redhead, I fry really easily. And then actually that's it. Sometimes I have some extra things, but usually that's all I have in here. I also have my anchor lines in there, and like I said, I have all that extra transducer cable. But that's pretty much it for all that I carry in my kayak. Oh yeah, one other thing. So on the sides of the milk crate, there's a little bit of space. So usually I throw in my like top 3 most used baits in there, so I can quick switch them out while I'm fishing, because I have a, as you can see on my line, I have a snap, so I can just switch out between buzzbait, spinnerbait, or frog while I'm fishing. So right now I only have 1 in the package, but usually I have my top 3 right there, and I can just reach around and grab them without pulling out my tray. Yeah, that's everything I have on my kayak. Alright, so now that we've gone through all of the features of this kayak and the modifications and things I've added to it, I'm now just going to talk about a little bit how it performs. So as I said, this thing is very lightweight, very easy to move. It being 8 feet, I can actually fit it in our family van and transport it that way, which is fantastic. As you have seen in some of my videos, it handles waves miraculously. For the smaller lakes I've been on, obviously this is not an ocean-going craft, but it's only 8 feet. It comes in at 37 pounds, making it very easy to move, especially with that center carrying handle. I have been able to stand up in this. It's not like, I won't want to stand in it for a very long time, and it's not ideal, but you can stand in it to stretch your back or fish one spot for a few minutes. But again, you probably won't do that all day. It's not that stable, but it is a very stable craft, as you have seen going through waves. And like I said, it is standable for a short amount of time. As for efficiency, this is the hull design. I mean, it's obviously designed to cut through water. I mean, it's a kayak, it's well designed, so it does that pretty well. Again, I would say because it's 8 feet, because of how easy it is to transport, how small it is, how light it is, and how stable it is, it probably isn't, it's not the quickest or the most efficient boat by any means. But again, I think for this price point, for the stability you get, and for the ease of use and transporting of this, it's just a balance between all of those. And I think they did a great job in doing that. I would highly recommend this kayak if you're on a budget or you don't have a ton of space to store one and to move one, which were two things I was looking for when I bought this kayak. I got mine at a local Walmart for $164, which is not bad considering how durable it is, how well made it is, just how well it performs, and it comes with a paddle. Now, getting on to the things I definitely don't like about this kayak, I have to come to the paddle. First of all, it's heavy. I weighed it at about 2.5 pounds, which isn't terrible, but it's not light by any means. It's made from a steel shaft, which has been like coated. It's not very thick, so it's not like super heavy, but again, it's not even aluminum, which is kind of annoying. Another thing I really don't like about it is it didn't come with any drip guards, and so when you're paddling, water can tend to go down the blade onto the shaft and come into your kayak, which is really annoying. So I've added some zip ties right here on each side, which help a little bit, but they don't cut out all of it. So that's one thing I would definitely add too that I forgot to mention. Another complaint with the paddle is how flat it is. It's not a very efficient paddle. It's flat and flimsy. It's not super flimsy like it works, but it's not as sturdy as I think it should be for a paddle. I mean, it did come with it, so I can only complain so much. Another big complaint about the paddle is this isn't right here. This isn't sealed, so as you can see, there's even water coming out of it now. So this paddle does float, which is nice, but the internal little stops to keep water out leak. So it's kind of hard to tell, but there is water sitting inside the paddle, and I can't get it out right now. So I'm thinking about drilling into this and then sealing this here, drilling in, draining the water, and then sealing that hole and this hole, but I'm not sure. I might just leave it as it is. So if you're buying this kayak and you have to do some serious paddling, I would encourage you to buy a different paddle, and I've thought about it myself, but I haven't quite pulled the trigger yet on that. Overall though, this is a fantastic kayak. I would highly recommend it for just recreational kayaking or for fishing, obviously, as I have used it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.